Last week I did a review on Top Gun Maverick, and one of the highlights was how the use of practical effects made the movie so much more thrilling. I made an argument that practical effects will always feel more immersive than CGI, and I stick by it. Despite this, I understand why not all of Hollywood can make this type of special effects the tool of choice. In this video, I'd like to discuss CGI versus practical effects. The very first use of CGI in a feature film was in 1973's Westworld. One of the most famous instances is 1982's Tron. You might look at a trailer today and consider the graphics laughable, but back in 1982, this was the pinnacle of digital special effects. Terminator 2: Judgment Day was a landmark achievement. Many studios started dabbling in CGI, but it was still new technology. This made it not only expensive, but notoriously difficult to get right. Production teams like those of 1992's Lawnmower Man opted for cheaper, less realistic looking effects. But 1993 would feature one of the greatest special effects triumphs ever put to film. Jurassic Park was released in theaters on June 11th in 1993. The film made an immediate impact on audiences for one preeminent reason: the cutting-edge visual effects. Through a combination of CGI for long shots and practical models for close-ups, the film convinced viewers everywhere that dinosaurs could walk the earth again. As with Spielberg's other classic Jaws, production was not without its challenges. Initially, stop-motion pioneer Phil Tippett was brought in to provide the necessary effects for dinosaurs in motion, along with models created by legendary Stan Winston. Director Steven Spielberg was not satisfied with the way the dinosaurs moved, and at the suggestion of Dennis Muren of Industrial Light and Magic, the stop-motion footage was abandoned and replaced with CGI. Tippett and team were still consulted on what the movements of the dinosaur would look like, and they were tasked to build models which could translate the movement to a computer. A large-scale T-Rex was built for the paddock escape scene, and it still stands as one of the largest animatronic props ever created by Stan Winston's studio. The scene was meant to take place in the rain, which presented another problem. While the internal mechanics of the creature suffered no damage, there was nowhere for the water to escape to. It ended up soaked by the foam rubber skin of the model, which added extra weight. The model was designed by precisely taking its weight into account. With the added weight of the water, it ended up twitching at several intervals. To circumvent this problem, it had to be hand-dried between takes. Luckily, it was able to function properly just long enough to shoot the entire scene. Jurassic Park was immensely successful both critically and commercially. ILM could offer these same CGI services to studios looking for cutting-edge special effects, and at a much more reasonable price, since the procedure had been more streamlined since the days of Terminator 2. CGI took off and became the standard special effect tool for blockbusters. Over the years, however, this has presented a problem. Many film viewers feel that despite how realistic CGI looks these days, the fact that they know it's CGI makes it all less thrilling. Filmmakers like Christopher Nolan prefer using practical effects as much as possible and only opt for CGI when absolutely necessary. Films like Inception and this year's Top Gun Maverick prove that practical effects can still wow audiences and bring studios lucrative returns. Of course, these movies use CGI to an extent. After all, even though you can use real jets, you can't use actual SAMs to launch real missiles at them. That's just too risky, and whatever glorious shot you get out of it is just not worth putting your stunt crew's lives on the line. In an age of old franchises being dusted off for reboots and sequels set decades later, some effects actually feel underwhelming compared to the original. Consider the CGI for the Alien in the Thing prequel from 2011, or the unrealistic looking dinosaurs in close-up shots from 2015's Jurassic World. Top Gun Maverick maintains the authentic feel of its predecessor in terms of visual, making a case for Hollywood to consider making practical effects the standard once again. This can be applied to more fantastical genres like, for instance, comic book films. The year is 1978. A film is released with a tagline, "You will believe a man can fly." This film is Superman, starring Christopher Reeves as a titular character. For the production, many practical effects were used, such as wire rigs to keep Reeves elevated above the ground. The effects team also made use of a remote-controlled cape-waving rig that would allow Superman's cape to billow as he flies and look much more convincing. Audiences did exactly as the tagline said, "Believe a man can fly." Technology has improved considerably in the 44 years since the release of Superman, so you can't be faulted for not being all too impressed by that film. It's just the fact that in more recent times, you've seen better, like the scene in 2008's The Dark Knight where Joker blows up a Gotham General Hospital. Thought that was CGI? Look again. Practical effects through and through. The building in question was a former brass candy factory that was scheduled for demolition. This meant that the crew could use it for set explosion, but it also meant that the planning and timing for the scene had to be precise. No margin for reshoots, since there's no way to put the demolished building back together. This only makes the scene look that much more realistic, which adds to the suspense and awe audiences experience. Side note, there's a misconception about this scene that the explosion failed and that late actor Heath Ledger had to improvise. This is untrue. The scene was meticulously planned because the crew had only one shot at it, and the delay was deliberately included by special effects supervisor Chris Corbould. I bring this up because it bothers me that a rumor diminishes the hard work put in by the special effects team. Even with the impressive feats, for some projects, practical effects might be difficult or even impossible to apply. In the year 2000 came the release of Fox's X-Men. Hollywood started showing more interest in superhero films, greenlighting bigger budgets, and casting of A-list actors. In 2008, Iron Man was released and kicked off the MCU. By 2012, with the release of The Avengers, the popularity of superhero films increased immensely. Audiences delivered the message, and studios all across Hollywood were listening. Superheroes are the next big thing. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers became household names. People who once considered superhero merch for kids were now purchasing said merch for themselves, and millions would visit theaters across the globe to catch their next adventure. Adventures that took them to New York, Europe, and even the depths of outer space. The sky was the limit in terms of the stories these characters could be portrayed in. In fact, the only limits were the restrictions of practical effects. In 2008's Iron Man, the titular character is confronted by two F-22 Raptors. Remember those flight scenes in Top Gun Maverick using real planes? Well, in Iron Man, they're CGI. The character of Iron Man himself is rendered mostly in CGI for action scenes like this one. It's fast, requires long takes focused on a single section of the plane, and even has the pilots responding quickly to Iron Man's efforts to evade them. Could this have been done with practical effects? Probably. But it would have been considerably more difficult and, well, not very practical. Hollywood doesn't just have F-22 Raptor jets lying around. Agreements need to be made with the military in order for them to accommodate the production team and provide these vehicles. While they're usually reserved to provide convincing set pieces, flying a fighter jet and performing stunts takes more effort and is also more costly to production. With much of the budget already going to CGI, it's easier to understand why studios choose to have these scenes rendered in 3D. Another aspect is time. If you want practical effects to be done right, it takes time and planning. Superhero films, particularly those in the MCU, feature many different action scenes in different locations. These films are rolled out according to a tight schedule. Marvel simply can't afford to spend months or even years on precisely coordinating the use of practical effects for their entire slew of releases. Speaking of locations, how do you show a spaceship flying at blazing speeds using special effects? Or build an alien location like Planet Morag? While this could be circumvented with scaled models and decorated locations, how do you approach a character? Thanos is an alien despot who thought to diminish life across the entire universe by half. He's powerful and imposing, towering over almost every other character in the series. The idea of makeup being used to achieve Thanos' look gives me serious X-Men Apocalypse vibes. But even if it looked convincing, how do you account for proportions? Thanos is not only taller, but also bulkier than humanly possible. During the production of X-Men Apocalypse, a fan-made edit of Dwayne Johnson as Apocalypse did the rounds across the internet. Sure, he's quite bulky and could maybe pull it off, But the action sequences in MCU productions are quite fast-paced, and since there are formidable superpowers at play, a bulkier actor can't necessarily move around as fast as needed. The bottom line is, it really comes down to what kind of movie you're trying to make. Sometimes practical effects will be your best option for captivating your audience. Sometimes CGI is just the best for transporting said audience to strange new worlds and impossible beings. Whichever form of special effects filmmakers settle for, if the story is engaging enough, the final product will always be enjoyed. #Glenn Powell for Nova.